Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Canada's podcast. I am your Atlantic Canada host. It's Rivers Corbett. And, so many great things are happening around Atlantic Canada, and I get the luxury of hanging out with rock star entrepreneurs. And the one today, I don't say it enough to him, but he not only connects with me intellectually, but there's a lot of emotion hanging in my heart for this man. Want to welcome to the Canada's podcast, of course, Greg Hemmings. Greg, welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hey, Rivers, how are you, man? I'm so glad you used the word intellectual and me and kind of in the same thought. So I appreciate that. That doesn't happen often, Rivers.
Very rare, very rare, very rare. I had to practice the word intellectual, so it doesn't come much out of my face either. So let me get into a bit of bio. My buddy here is a great entrepreneur based out of St. John, New Brunswick. Lives by the river there and has been a passionate supporter of entrepreneurship around the globe, but of course in his hometown of St. John, New Brunswick. He has two companies, Hemmings House, which we're going to talk about his journey, first of all, with Hemmings House, who he's been doing for decades, and a most recent pivot. I don't mind saying the word pivot, Hemmings Films, which we're going to talk about also. Where they focus more on making positive social environmental change through film storytelling, and lean in, get your blanket, because storytelling is kind of cool with what this man does for sure. Incorporated in 2006, and his latest TV series, Race Against the Tide, is currently airing on CBC Thursday nights at what time, Greg?
8 p.m. across the country, Rivers.
8 o'clock Eastern PST.
I have to just pause there for a second. This is how awful I am. When I saw that, when it was 8 p.m., all the CBC advertising said 8 p.m. EST, right? Yeah. Because it was very Toronto-based advertising. It was on the side of the buses. It's up on the highway signs, all this.
Nice.
And I just did the math. I was like, well, 8 o'clock ET is 9 o'clock, AST. So yeah. I told all of my friends, I even put a newsletter out for 1,500 people on the email. I said 9 o'clock PM. And then so everybody missed it. The premiere of the show. And then I realized, I remembered that CBC actually time shifts. So you can watch a program at 8 p.m. in Atlantic Canada that's not going to air for another 4 hours in Vancouver. So they keep their 8 o'clocks right across the country, except if you're in Newfoundland. It'd be 8 and a half.
So cool. Yeah. Well, because being in Atlantic Canada, we always are in that mind shift of what time zone are we in and how it all relates. And I don't know about you, but when I'm dealing with our friends from Ontario and Quebec, they say it's 8 o'clock. They don't know other time zones. They just know it's 8 o'clock. And our friends out west, in fairness to them, they say PST. We say AST. And of course, no one freaking knows when Newfoundland is, except for the people in the Maritimes. So, look, man, it's great to have you on the Canada's podcast. Great to see you and all that kind of jazz. I want to talk about your passion, your interest, because one thing that you had been honest to, and we talk about this with entrepreneurship, is be honest to who you are and why you are on the planet. So tell me, why are you on planet Earth?
Oh, that is a great question, Rivers. I don't know what the real answer is, but the one I've adopted is one of, there's definitely a purpose or, a gifting or a skill or something of, having a passion to help share other people's stories. Sometimes people call me a storyteller, and I'll call myself a storyteller sometimes, but I'm not really a storyteller. I'm a story sharer or a story amplifier. And when I say that, what I really mean is, we make films and videos and commercials. So we're telling engaging stories of other people's lived experiences because we find them very interesting and worthy of being told. And we amplify them through television documentaries, through television series, or in the commercial side, it might be about, the values of your corporation or really how your product, has a really good clean supply chain and, all those different things. We're telling other people's stories, helping amplify them. And I think that's just something that I've been drawn to.
Yeah, I think you have been drawn to it. I mean, I have had a beer with you many times, and course, have been
Or
following
many
it for
beers
career.
one time.
And there's beers one time, which is probably the most unmemorable time that we've ever been together. But you, storytelling has always been part of your journey. And so, as a kid, what was your favorite story that you said, "Tell me it again and again and again"?
Oh, interesting. Okay, I don't have one, but I will tell you that my dad was a really good storyteller when he was putting us to bed. And I just, even to this day,
I met your dad. Yeah, I know your dad's an amazing storyteller.
I just remember these adventures he would tell about, because when we were younger, he used to take us into the caves in St. John, like in Rocket Park, and there's these amazing caves that go really deep into the earth. And in grade 1 or grade 2, it's thrilling and scary and awesome. And
when he take you in, did he say, "Now figure out how to get out"?
Figure out how to get out. Yeah,
tie you up and blindfold you.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't. Thankfully, it wasn't that scenario. But in the stories he would tell me, and I remember just drifting off to sleep eventually. But like he'd have this continuous story about these boys' adventures into caves and the classic. The classic dad storytelling things that would happen, and I try to mimic that with my own kids now. Probably not as successfully, but as a kid, I just always enjoyed those type of made up as you go type of stories.
I love it.
And I never really had, I at a young age, I might have been, I was into Hardy Boys and things like that, of course. But
there's Bobbsey Twins. Did you read the Bobbsey Twins?
I never read the Bobbsey Twins, but
Hardy Boys though work. Hardy Boys,
and whatnot. It's for me, it was never really fiction or scripted. That was my favorite. One of my favorite is just capturing and archiving cool experiences so other people could share in them. And that's what I realized at a very young age. Like I remember I found it recently, finding a journal in grade 3. We went to Hawaii. My dad used to sell wood stoves, and I think he sold a bunch of Vermont casting wood stoves, and they flew him to the national conference in Hawaii for free or something.
He wasn't selling wood stoves to people in Hawaii.
No. I think we were being celebrated there, and I remember just logging the whole thing in a journal. And I still have that journal. So I had this feeling of capturing events from a young age. And then I started playing in rock bands at a very young age too. We just made a lot of noise in my parents' basement from grade 5 on up. And I would record everything. And then in high school, when we started playing shows, I still have the concert posters. I've got all the videotapes from back in the day. So I archived. I was an archivist. Of experiences that I wanted to share in the future. And I don't know where that came from. I have no idea, but I realized nobody else was archiving this amazing thing. So why not me?
Well, it's an interesting point you bring up. I always, when I talk, about being an entrepreneur, people say, "Do you believe entrepreneurs are made or they're born?" Well, I think they're both, but I think you have more success if you're actually born an entrepreneur at some level because it's already in you and you don't know why it's the case. I mean, why production? Why do people want to be firemen? Why do people? I got this friend of mine. He wants to be a correctional officer in Renews, and I'm just like, whoa! I'm so glad you do because I don't.
Yeah, so and I'd like to understand that more. And and all the props to that guy. Like, there's probably something really interesting in that person's story about why they want to be a correctional officer.
Totally. So I love that you did that. I love that you did this. So let's kind of fast forward it, because when you decided to start Hemmings House in a very traditional industry, of course, where tons of money was being made at the time. And so what went through you that you said, "I'm not going to Toronto, I'm not going to New York, I'm going to set it up right here"? What was the impetus that said, "This is what I'm going to do"?
That wasn't part of the plan, but I did go to film. I went to film school in Ontario, and I immediately, after graduating, started working on feature films. Joined the union, just started doing that, working in up the ranks in the camera department.
Do you still belong to the union?
No. I quit that whole racket years ago. And in fact, I quit it to a point of never wanting to go back. It was just not a good scene. And if any of your listeners, or maybe even the show notes, if you want to find a really neat article that I wrote that went viral in the film industry, it's called "Why I Quit the Film Industry and what I'm doing to reframe it." So we talked about a lot of the bullying tactics and the top-down power dynamic abuses that happen in the feature film world. So anyway, I quit that, and I very long, interesting story short. I ended up in the Caribbean because I was like, what the hell am I going to do with my life? And adventure was the only thing that was ahead of me. So I ended up living on a sailboat down there for I was in the Caribbean for probably 3-4 years. And I started archiving everything again because I bought a video camera before I went down. And I was like, I still love capturing moments with my video camera. So then I started working on cruise ships and getting paid. And they had very fancy, expensive Avid editing gear. And back then, early 2000s, to buy an Avid edit suite would be $150,000. Like, I couldn't afford that. Wow. I'd come home in the summer times and I'd start editing. I started filming music festivals and music documentaries, and I'd edit them on the cruise ships on the fancy gear. And I kept on doing this back and forth, and then I started getting hired to do some corporate videos. And then
who was your first corporate client?
Oh, I've got two, and I don't really quite remember which one. Oh no, I do remember which one was which. So the first one was Lori Weir. Do you know Lori?
Totally do. Yeah.
Yeah, Lori and
Brent. You were doing. What were they? Pinnacle or something? Were they not doing Pinnacle? What was the name of the company?
I think that's what it was. Good memory. So they were, as far as I know, when I was in my parents' basement, just as a solo video guy, they were my first big client. And then, nice. and then I started a company with my buddy Andrew Tibby and Glenn Ingersoll called Hit Media. And our first client there was Steve Bellier of Base Engineering. And we did a film, a motocross film in San Diego with motocross legend Marty Smith that Steve funded. So that was our very first paid gig at Hit Media. And then we started doing a bunch of commercial stuff, but at the same time still doing TV work. Like we did a show called a Tidby show called the Useless Facts Travel Show.
Yes.
And we did that for the Travel Escape TV channel back in the day, where we just go to roll the towns and figure out what useless fact they had. Like the biggest violin in the world is in Cape Breton, or
where's the biggest axe? Where's the biggest axe in the world?
All that, like funny little quirky things. And of course, we visited Dildo, Newfoundland, and all those other great little spots. And then we.
So here's a question for you. As part of that, okay, you're doing all these, but with any business, there's business is in business to solve problems. What was the problem that you were solving during that time period when you just get hired again and again and again? Because I think that's an important lesson you learn. It sounds all good, but you're just not just throwing stuff out there for the sake of it. You're actually helping people solve problems.
Yeah, well, in the case of those commercial clients, they had a business need that had to be solved through film storytelling. Right. And because, there's no more powerful medium than video. Photography is very, very powerful and can be more powerful than video. But if you're trying to convey trust and share a story in a way that people will get engaged and get connected with their hearts, video is very powerful to do that. And if you're trying to get the attention of a potential customer or other stakeholders, and back in those days, everybody didn't have a video camera in their pockets. So they had to hire people like us. So it was a communications problem that we were solving in that regard. But on the TV side, we were creating content that we would hope that our customers, which are broadcasters, CTV, Discovery, CBC, they've got a mandate to tell stories across the country. So we're telling what our life's like on the East Coast.
Sure. And they got to bring value, so bring viewers, which ultimately bring advertisers, right?
You got it. You got it. That's the machine.
So when did you, was it called Hemming House right from the beginning, or did you have another?
No, that was Independent Medium Productions. Was my first company. And I spelt it wrong on the incorporation papers. It was,
you did. Yeah.
I spelled it by mistake though. I spelled independent with an A, so independent. And then many months later, someone said, you spelled independent wrong. I was like, what? And then I started to try to play around with my logo to actually have an ant as the logo, just to make it look like So anyway, then
do not admit fault. Do not admit
That's
fault.
right. That's right. You fix the problem, Band-Aid it. So then I joined up with two of my buddies. So Hemmings, H, Ingersoll, I, and Tidby, T. So Hit Media. And I considered that season of 3 years as my MBA. Where, hey, we had a ball, had a lot of great times, great parties too. We threw awesome office parties, and
that you did.
But man, oh man, did we ever lose money? Did we ever make mistakes? And I realized a lot of good lessons.
Give us a couple of them. What were the couple of them?
Well, I would say, with all literal due respect to my two friends who were my partners, who had their strengths, and we all had our weaknesses, right? But if you go in a three-way equal partnership with friends, I don't discourage that, but I would say tread with caution because your friendship's on the line. Because money and business and, the division of work or assumed division of work is, we're all human, and resentment happens. And
sure does.
And then understanding how to get out of a partnership without destroying a friendship. At the onset is a good piece of one of my partners, Andrew, he and I are still the best of buds, and we started producing TV shows together right after, like it was all good, but it was a notable lesson learned is somebody needs to be the boss. It sounds crazy, especially, and I'm a big time collaboration guy and very flat organization. But somebody needs to have final say. And if it's an equal partnership, that those equal partners need to choose one of the three to make decisions on finance, another one maybe on creative, but to know your lane and respect each other's lanes. But as an immature company, we wouldn't have thought of that. So I think that'd be a nice little nugget to leave with any listeners.
Yeah, I am. You're right. They don't think about that. And I remember when I was running Relish Gourmet Burgers with Chef Ray Henry, we set it up exactly from that in the beginning. Is that I was the CEO. If the buck had to stop, I was making the call. And but we also understood he ran ops and I ran marketing, sales, etc. And for most part, he was able to he was able to say, no, that's what we're doing for ops. And I respected that. That's what he was talented in. And I was doing the other side. And, we lived very well together during that time because we identified those areas of expertise in the beginning, but then also respected them as we carried on. I don't think we ever had to enact the Corbett veto rule during that time period because we just figured it out.
Respecting each other's roles.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you mentioned that. So, Hemmings House today is, what is it? You got to be at least 20 years old or older.
Well, Hemmings House. So I started that independent medium productions, I would say in 1999, maybe something in that era.
Okay.
And then Hit Media was like 2003. And then 2006 was Hemmings House. At Hemmings House, right from the onset was just me. And then I brought in a couple of shareholders later on, one of them being my wife and then another investor. And we've been growing ever since. And it's really cool because I've got guys who started with me in my basement, 15 years ago who are still working with me and leading the company. It's great. It's awesome.
So let's talk about that for a second, because one thing that I hear a lot of entrepreneurs say is, I can't afford that person, I can't afford that person, I can't afford that person. So 2006, as you're growing the company and you needed to bring in other people, how did you navigate that when maybe you could afford them right away? Maybe you were ready to do that, but it's always the How do you do that?
It was a miracle. I had no idea. And I've got my books from those years on my computer somewhere.
I'm sure you do. We
probably made 30 grand or something like that the first year. Like, how did we support ourselves? But we did have programs. Like there were like Enterprise St. John had great programs for
right.
And I remember the SEB, the small enterprise, or I don't know. There was some federal funding for helping small companies, offset some of the costs of hiring, and we had some pretty sweet retainer clients. Like
Nice.
my biggest client right off the gate was for Hemmings was Bell Alliance, and we shot well over 2,000 hours of live music concert footage in the first few years.
How'd you get that client? How'd you get that client? Give us a lesson on
Shubba Demokas was the VP there, or I don't know what it's called VP, but the guy who ran all of the local content for Atlantic Canada for Bell. And I remember him walking down to our office at Hit Media because he just heard about us, and he walked in, he was like, guys, I hired.
Walked in. Didn't send you an email. Walked in.
He walked in. Want to meet you? We've got all these hockey games and sports events and music concerts. And I was like, oh, music concerts. Because I started the business as a music film company.
Yeah.
And I said, we do that. We're already doing that. Here's a bunch of documentaries we've done. Because remember I told you I started with doing music docs.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, geez, well, there's a concert coming into town. Can you film it? Like, yeah, we did 3-camera setup. And then we just started bringing some jibs in. But eventually we were doing all the Harvest Jazz and Blues. We were doing all the Halifax Jazz Fest. We were doing the ECMAs at the end with 9-10 cameras with jibs. Remember how
what's a jib, man? What's a jib? I'm thinking
crane,
like a single
crane.
Okay.
A big crane that goes over it. And I remember even Gordy Johnson from Big Sugar. We hired him on the ECMAs in Cape Breton once to ride the boards to do all the audio for us. So we built a really neat live music business, and it wasn't crazy lucrative, but it was lucrative enough to keep my guys paid.
Yeah.
And it's and we did a lot of work with Radiant 6 in the early days when Radiant 6 was starting. Mm-hmm. And so having a few of those as retaining clients, and we had a marketing agency like Revolution Strategy. They hired us a bunch of cook aquaculture in the early days, and enough because there wasn't many of us in town doing video back then.
Right. There
was a few, but there was enough pie for everybody at that time, and that's how we did it, man. It was scrappy, as scrappy as it gets.
Yeah, well, that's okay, right? That's the journey of it. The overnight success takes 25 years. So it was scrappy, but you kept on going. And what kept you going? Was it just the juice in you that says, I love freaking well what I do?
I'd say for the majority of this career has been really caring about the people around me and wanting, having a little bit of that Eastern Canadian fear or insecurity, right? All these people are building their lives and their incomes are dependent on this business.
Yeah, man.
So I've had this sense of responsibility that only now I'm starting to get relaxed on because everybody's so pro here now. They're just great professionals and they need me less and less, So, but my motivation was to grow value in this region and grow capacity and have fun doing it, by doing fun films and working with cool companies. That's what we've done. Yeah.
So a couple of questions, and we're going to kick it into Hemmings Films. Is the whole environment around iPhones? Android starts showing up into people's lives, and there you are with this big production, big budget stuff. How did you start to separate yourself when that competition, where everybody around the corner was able to do some level of film production?
Well, in a way, it was really a blessing because everybody's got a film studio in their pockets, and anybody can do this, but not everybody can do it well.
Right.
Now, does not everybody have the time, because to edit a 3-minute piece together, you might be working 3 days on it, 4 days. So you might be an entrepreneur that is an amazing filmmaker, but you also got to run a business, right? So we didn't lose anything for that. If anything, people started to respect what we do more.
Right.
But also, there's always going to be, competition on the lower cost end for us. Mm-hmm. But entry point for us, not saying we don't do projects smaller than this, because we do, but we have to deliberate at the leadership team if we do. But a $10,000 video is very much at the bottom of like the smallest. But we'll do projects that are much smaller. Sure. But we have to decide: can we afford to do this? But like our average project size would be between 30 and 60 grand, right? Like, the single camera people that could be seen as competition really are our allies, because we hire them all the time to crew up. Right. But also we don't sell video production. We sell storytelling and strategy, and then we hire really kick-ass technicians that could be seen as our competition, but we bring them into the fold, and yeah.
It's like with my company, Chef Torio, food is the technical part of it. We're all about building communities, bringing community together around food and connecting with emotions and so on around that. And food just happens to be the way we do it. So I love that analogy you made. One more question, and then we're going to kick into the Hemmings film piece, because that's I want to know about how you pivoted, and what's that point that you say, I need to now look at something else. I want to talk about, you said the guys. You talked about them being your team. You talked about them, pretty well running the company. For entrepreneurs that are at that stage of moving away from their company, any recommendations on how they ultimately hand it off to the next generation?
Well, I mean, it's succession is critical. So thankfully, over the last, I'd say only 2 to 3 years, we've been blocking the structure up for succession. So almost everybody, right down to an intern level, we are constantly training people to get ready for the next up, including Steve, who is the president of my company, who's pretty much run the ops of this thing forever. He knows how to be the CEO of this company because he's pretty much doing all the roles anyway. He's not the figurehead. He's not out there speaking and stuff like that. He's actually running the company. So if I died tomorrow, the company isn't going to miss a beat. And and Steve has people that I don't like saying under, but like straight up, if something happened to Steve, there are people smart enough here that can hop up. And the whole system is about succession. And I would say, if you can create a culture of succession, knowing that exiting might never happen, it might be in 50 years, but always plan on what's the redundancy. If somebody bails or can't work anymore, who else is going to quickly slide up so we don't have to hire? My dream is not to hire at executive level ever. Always bringing leaders up, right? And that's just a really smart way of doing things.
Cool, man. Hemmings Film. So what goes through your head when you say, okay, I gotta move here. It's time to quote unquote diversify outside of Hemmings House into this thing called Hemmings Films. I don't know how you came up with the word Hemmings Films. I had no clue how that happened. But love the name.
Just as a point of humor, let me see if Hemmings Films is still meeting right now in the boardroom. No, they're not. But I'm going to. It's always in there. Anyway, the Hemmings Films was incorporated the same time as Hemmings House. I'm going to go actually into my real office now because it seems like everybody's gone. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
I want to work for Hemmings Films House.
Yeah, it's a film house. So what we did was when you make a TV show or a feature film, for liability reasons, you have to incorporate a new company every time. So we just finished Race Against the Tide, which is a big project. And
that's Hemmings Films, right? That's Hemmings Films. That you do that?
Yeah, and we co-produced that with Marble Media out of Toronto, and Marble is a very highly respected production company making kick-ass content, and that's a big budget project. So what has to happen there is Marble Media in Toronto and Hemmings Films will create a new single-purpose company that will its only objective is to produce that one season of the TV show. That's it.
Wow.
So and it has to be that way because CBC does not want the interest of any other project in the company to be a liability to the project, right? So
totally got it.
So
got
every time we do a TV show, right from our first wrestling TV show that we did way back in the old days, I had Wrestling World Pictures 1, Wrestling World Pictures 2, Cubicle to the Cage, which was our MMA series. Cubicle, it was called Hemmings Cubes, was that company. So I should have had a full-time legal on because
Seriously.
incorporating all the time. That's a different business model than our commercial side, which is, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And litigation is minimal on that side, where if you're doing TV shows, it's just, there's more risk in that sort of thing. So right from the beginning, I've had Hemmings Films for as long as I've had Hemmings House. It's just that nobody, and I called it Hemmings Films because I didn't think it'd ever be a forward-facing brand, because everything's under Hemmings House, right?
Of course, yes.
But as we've been growing, there's been confusion in the market, and I don't think it's been detrimental. But if you follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook, I talk about the stuff I'm passionate about, which is documentaries and social impact and my TV series and stuff. But I'm passionate about the commercial stuff too, right?
Yes.
But like you and I were talking about this right before we press record, that in this company, I'm pretty much have been traditionally the voice on social media. And so we were, the rest of the company that was actually the heartbeat of the company, the commercial side, wasn't getting much outward messaging from me. And we're like, maybe it's time to actually brand separate, So nothing's different now, except the fact that we are now building a team and building capacity in Hemmings Films to only look at developing productions. And so that's so it's kind of it's old news, but with a new approach.
Well, it's news to me, and then I remember hearing Richard Branson's my mentor. He doesn't know he is, but he is, and he talks about when his companies get to 100, he splits them up into 50s because he wants to maintain that entrepreneurial spirit. And find the bigger they get, that spirit gets lost. Nice. So great reasons to do what it is you're doing. But you're a quote unquote certified B Corp. So tell people what that is, and then what does that mean for Hemmings Films?
Yeah, well, B Corporation, go to bcorporation.net if you want to learn more. It's a certification of companies that are certified, audited to live to the values that they suggest that they live by. So we've all heard
the B Corp people. The B Corp people certified. So you agree you're going to live like a B Corper?
It's like if certified organic or certified fair trade. Got it. It's a certifying body that you have to prove that you're living up to certain standards. B Corp is the highest environmental standards, highest social standards, and straight up fiscal standards. So if you're running your company well, there's a good chance you can be a B Corp. If your company is building arms for the international war machine, you probably won't be able to get in. It's okay. But a good chunk of companies have the ability. You could even work in oil and gas, which is notoriously not great for the environment. But you could have a company in the supply chain of oil and gas that's a B Corp that is doing something to help clean up the carbon issue of the oil industry, let's just say, or maybe you're a machining company or something, because you need a certain amount of points on social environmental standards and fiscal standards to become a B Corp. 80 points out of 200 to become one. The average good company in Canada, that's a company just doing good work, is 24 points. That's the average. Wow. So think about that. Wow. So you have to go way above, and going above and beyond doesn't mean necessarily acting more. It's about documenting more. So if you say that you're trying to reduce your carbon footprint as a company, well, prove it. How are you doing that? Show us the paper. So it's definitely an effort. It's definitely, or if you say, oh yeah, we've got a maternity paternity leave policy. Okay, well, let's see it. Where is it? I was like, oh, well, it's not written down. Okay, well, you better write it down if you want to get the points to get in. So it actually forces you to become a good, well-documented company.
So, why is that important to you? Why? You as a personality. Why? Let me rephrase that. Sorry. Why is that important to your customers? Because I would think there's going to be some commercial value off of that court. That
No,
certification.
100%. Like for us, it's a little bit of a yardstick or a lighthouse or something of saying, helping us make decisions. Like, should we do this piece of work that might not be totally in line with our values as people? Our people values within the company. We went through many seasons of this company doing work that did not rub us well as humans. We're contributing to something but we need the money. But if you're certified B Corp, you can use that as a really positive excuse to say, "I'm so sorry. We really respect you, client, but that piece of work, it's not in line with the values of the company, and we're a certified B Corp. I hope you understand." It just kind of helps, And the other thing is, on the market side, on the flip side, it's a competitive advantage because it's just something else to talk about. And they're like, "Oh,
yeah, right.
Oh, let us tell you." I'm not shoving all the profits into my pocket. I'm, into the owner's pocket. I'm actually investing in all these X, Y, and Z things, including, good benefits for my employees and whatever the things are. And,
So being a member of the RKYC is not good enough as a certification process for posing good questions of interest to your clients.
Well, I suppose I could spin it that way.
Yeah, why not? And actually, where are you a member? Where are you a book club member? You just have it outside your home?
I've got my own mooring, so I'm at the Ragged Point book club, but I'm also an associate member at the RKYC, and now a seasonal member at the St. John Powerboat Club, because I'm going to leave my boat in the water all winter this year.
Yeah, they have a bubble system, don't they, at the St. John? Yeah. So thank you for walking people through that. I think that's an important value statement, and of course attracts not only great clients, but of course great, I'll call team members. I always hated the word employees. So great team members who tie into that value proposition, particularly, with this generation, whatever the younger generation is, they're very conscientious of that. And, I applaud them for doing that. So that's very, very cool. Closing up, tell us about Race Against the Tide.
Yeah. So again, good friends of ours, Marvel Media, led by Mark Bishop and his partner, Mark Hornberg, are Toronto film producers. Mark is from Rothesay originally. And I jumped into the industry just a few years after they got their start, and they have created a beautiful company that's done incredible work. You've seen their shows on TV and on Netflix. They've really done a great job. And every time I'd see those guys, I'd be like, we got to do something together. And one of these days we got to do something that's New Brunswick focused. And we finally did. And it was called Race Against the Tide. And it's a concept that they developed, and they invited us to become the New Brunswick partners on. And so we co-produced this thing for CBC, and it's on every Thursday night, 8 p.m., like we said earlier. And it's a competition reality show where sand sculptors, incredibly talented sand sculptors, come down to New River Beach on the Bay of Fundy, and they build these sand castles. And by the time the tide reaches the castle, it falls apart, and then the judges go through and figure out who wins. And someone gets kicked off the beach every episode. So you got to check it out. You got to see it. I don't know when this episode is going to come out.
Let me take a guess. 8 p.m. every night. I should be on CBC because that's possibly where it's going to open.
Thursday nights.
Thursday nights. So just a second.
You can watch on GEM, CBC GEM as well. So in fact, you can watch it anytime on GEM. Like, you don't have to watch it on television. So that's fun. Just another example of a little secret called New Brunswick about all the cool things we got to share with the world.
So let me give you one of my little secrets you may or may not know about, but being a TV guru you are, I didn't know if you knew this, but my family was the first family chosen to be on Family Feud Canada. I don't know if you knew that. Based on we used St. John, New Brunswick. We were the first one to be on Family Feud, and then there was another. Then of course there was a family who was chosen after us to go against. And so not only were we the first family chosen, but we were the first family to lose on Family Feud. Also,
no one
went down to the wire. Went down to the wire. Like, it was a great journey. And another thing, St. Johners, you can be proud of. For yours truly. So, brother, tell me, what's the best way for people to hang out with you in a way that you're going to freaking answer them?
Well, I try my best to respond to my inboxes on LinkedIn and Facebook, but I'm really slow these days, and I apologize for that. But if anybody ever really actually wants to get a hold of me, it's just my email, greg@hemmingshouse.com. If you send me a LinkedIn or a Facebook, I will get to it eventually. I'm going to try to start engaging better.
Well, let me tell you, I like to consider myself at least to be on the double A list, let alone the triple A list with Craig. And he does get back to me occasionally too. So it's love in his heart for everybody. But sometimes it takes a 20-year friendship to really move you up the order.
You can always call me anytime, brother.
Yeah, I know. And you've been a great friend, and you've been a great friend of the entrepreneurship community and so on. So, sorry, one last question before you go. Talk about what it's like to be an entrepreneur in Atlantic, Canada.
I think it's exciting. It sounds crazy. It's the Wild East, Wild East.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of untouched canvas. If you're bold enough to do something here, you can really find the flow. We're hyper networked. Well liked, but nothing's easy here at all. But that's the challenge. It's the fun challenge, and you can do cool. Like it's interesting. All these neat people have been moving back here. Maestro Fresh West, as we all remember, he was just in the office right before you called. So there's people like Wes who've moved here to Atlantic, Canada, or to New Brunswick. And he's finding a brand new life for himself here, like a creative life, like writing books, hanging out with kids, doing all these cool things that, like, he definitely could have done in Toronto. But there's a new type of flow that he's got here, a new network, a new environment, all these sort of things. So really, it's if you're ready for an adventure, I would strongly encourage people to think, this is another neat thing. St. John does have a what do you call it? The workation program, where if you are from Toronto or anywhere else across the country, if you want to try St. John out for 3 weeks, there's funding available to help you get a co-working space. They will offset some of your living expenses. Like, it's a great deal. Come try it out, and then we want more creative, motivated, entrepreneurial, artistic people to consider coming here, because our ecosystem's getting bigger and bigger and stronger. As COVID was really a weird blessing in that way. It's a lot of really neat people have moved back here.
That's so cool, dude. Well, keep on rocking. You're a great friend, great family you got, and you're a great asset to not just St. John, but the Atlantic Canadian region. So keep on happening, brother. Buddy. We'll be back to you with all of this magic, and hopefully we'll pass the test with the production that we're going to ultimately create from the edit reel.
I love
Keep
it.
on rocking.
Awesome.
We'll be in touch.
See you, buddy. Bye.
See you, man. Bye.